2 billion years ago, Earth's first apocalypse wasn't an asteroid. It was oxygen. Tiny bacteria figured out photosynthesis, flooded the planet with O2, and wiped out nearly every other life form. It's the first time life killed life. A haunting, ancient lesson about power, progress, and unintended consequences. Make sure to watch the full video to find out about this freaky little creature defies. Here's the first one.
So many questions. Why is the world spinning? Why is the moon keeping its orbit? Can rockets fly backwards? The facts you didn't know you needed. The Useless Show.
The weedy sea dragon, native to southern Australian waters, looks less like a fish and more like seaweed in disguise. With leaf-like frills and no actual function for swimming speed, it floats aimlessly through kelp forests, hiding in plain sight. This oddball camouflage isn't a costume, it's a survival tactic. First described in 1910, it belongs to the same family as seahorses, but has zero intention of blending in socially. In 2006, Pluto was reclassified from planet to dwarf planet by the International Astronomical Union, IAU. The new definition of a planet required that an object must orbit the Sun, be spherical due to its own gravity, and have cleared the neighborhood around its orbit. Pluto, which shares its orbital zone with other Kuiper Belt objects, did not meet this third criterion. As a result, Pluto was reassigned to the newly defined category of dwarf planets, a change that sparked widespread public debate and sentiment. The fangtooth fish, living in the deep ocean gloom, sports teeth so large it has to store them in sockets inside its skull just to close its mouth. This creature, which reaches only about 16 centimeters in length, holds the record for the largest teeth-to-body ratio among fish. Evolution, it seems, traded practicality for intimidation, because biting first and figuring out logistics later is a deep-sea tradition. Roughly 2 billion years ago, the Great Oxidation Event flooded Earth's atmosphere with oxygen thanks to tiny photosynthetic bacteria called cyanobacteria. While this was great news for future animals like us, it spelled disaster for anaerobic life that found oxygen toxic. It was the planet's first mass extinction, caused by microbes inventing photosynthesis and accidentally ruining the neighborhood. The tapetum lucidum is a built-in night vision upgrade found in many animals, including cats, dogs, and deer. It's a reflective layer behind the retina that bounces light back through the eye, making dim light more useful. It also explains why animals appear to have glowing eyes when headlights hit them. It's not magic, just clever evolutionary lighting design. Ancient Greek athletes didn't just oil their bodies for a nice sheen. After slathering themselves, they dusted on fine sand for grip and sun protection. The resulting grime, known as gloios, was scraped off post-match and somehow sold as a health tonic. Buyers believed it had mystical healing properties. Spoiler: it was mostly sweat, dirt, and leftover ambition. In medieval Japan, some ninjas used dried gourd halves as flotation devices to help them cross rivers. These lightweight hollow gourds allowed for relatively silent, if not graceful, passage across water. The boundary between a simple gardening tool and a makeshift weapon was, at times, surprisingly thin. Ice circles occasionally spin into existence on slow-moving rivers in winter. They form naturally when a section of water begins to rotate, shearing against surrounding ice and creating a near-perfect disk. Some grow several meters wide and rotate slowly, like nature's idea of a vinyl record, albeit one that plays only the sound of flowing water and physics. The mantid Empusa fasciata spends its downtime pretending to be a twig. It sways gently, even when there's no wind, to mimic plant movement and avoid predator attention. This is known as behavioral camouflage, or in simpler terms, doing absolutely nothing, but very convincingly. For a bug, it's a surprisingly effective career strategy. The northern fulmar, a seabird in the North Atlantic, defends its nest by projectile vomiting a putrid, oily goo. The substance can mat feathers so thoroughly that rival birds can't fly, turning an aerial dispute into a grounded problem. It's foul, it's efficient, and it's surprisingly effective. avian conflict resolution at its most digestive. The tree shrew possesses one of the highest brain-to-body mass ratios among non-primate mammals, comparable in some respects to that of humans. Native to Southeast Asia, this unassuming creature has become a valuable model in neuroscience research. Though its brain is small in absolute terms, it is proportionally large relative to its body size, making the tree shrew a standout in the mammalian world, essentially the nerd of mammals, just with fur. The red-capped manakin, a bird from Central America, has turned its mating ritual into interpretive dance. To impress females, it moonwalks, literally, hopping backward rapidly along a branch while flapping its wings and snapping its legs. Scientists call it an explosive display. Females, apparently, call it irresistible. Nature, once again, blurs the line between courtship and choreography. Sisu, a Finnish word with no direct English translation, means persistence in the face of overwhelming odds. It's more than courage. It's determination, without a deadline. Finland's harsh winters may have inspired it, but the concept is national. Endure, adapt, don't whine. While other cultures give up, the Finnish just add more layers and keep walking. The skeleton flower turns transparent when it rains. Its white petals lose their color as water fills the plant's cells, making them clear until they dry out and turn white again. Found in the mountains of Japan and China, it doesn't do this for attention, just an odd quirk of cellular structure. But yes, it's basically the botanical version of a disappearing ink trick. The baobab tree, found in parts of Africa, can live over 2,000 years and store more than 100,000 liters of water inside its massive trunk. During droughts, it becomes a survival hub for animals and people alike. Some villages even use hollowed baobabs as storage huts or gathering spaces. It's not a tree, it's a natural water tank with bark. The archerfish doesn't need a bow. It spits jets of water to knock insects off overhanging leaves, compensating for how light bends at the water's surface. This means it calculates physics before it even gets breakfast. It's the only fish known to perform such real-time trigonometry, and it does it without ever attending school. In 1976, Soviet pilot Viktor Belenko defected to Japan in a MiG-25 Foxbat, a fighter jet the West had feared for years. When engineers finally examined it, they discovered its avionics ran on vacuum tubes. It wasn't futuristic. It was just nuclear-proof and surprisingly repairable. Basically, the USSR built a space-age plane with World War II-era TV parts, and it worked. Cyanobacteria, among Earth's oldest living organisms, were the first single-celled life forms found to have a circadian rhythm. Scientists discovered in the 1990s that even these microscopic beings keep time internally, syncing to day and night cycles. So, even a cell with no brain and no deadlines still knows when it's Monday. The yellow crazy ant, an invasive species named more for its erratic movement than any diagnosis, has formed supercolonies across places like Christmas Island. There, they've sprayed formic acid on millions of native red crabs, nearly wiping them out. Essentially, they're ants with chemical weapons and a complete disregard for biodiversity. In ancient China, imperial concubines were sometimes buried alive with deceased emperors, a practice rooted in the idea of serving the ruler in the afterlife. Over time, the policy became less popular, largely because no one enjoys being part of funeral decor. It was eventually banned as morality and public unrest caught up with royal tradition. The medieval Norse calendar divided the year into just 2 seasons, summer and winter. They didn't bother with months or weeks. Instead, they counted nights. It's the kind of system you create when your entire life is about surviving snowstorms and occasionally pillaging the neighbors. In ancient Persia, a particularly inventive punishment called scaphism involved trapping the victim between 2 boats, force-feeding them milk and honey, and letting insects handle the rest. It was slow, sticky, and spectacularly cruel. Imagine being a snack tray left out in the sun for days, except you're the tray. The deep-sea sponge Monorhaphis chuni anchors itself with a single silica structure that can grow over 10 feet tall and last for more than 11,000 years. That's longer than most civilizations. It's essentially a living glass tower at the bottom of the ocean, aging so slowly it makes tortoises look impatient. Spoken in central Sardinia, Logudorese is a variety of Sardinian so faithful to Latin that some linguists consider it a distinct Romance language. It preserves phonetic features that disappeared elsewhere in Italy centuries ago. If modern Italian is the pop remix, Logudorese is the untouched vinyl of ancient Rome. The freshwater flatworm Dugesia japonica can regrow its head after decapitation and still remember things it learned before. Scientists trained it to react to light, chopped off its head, and watched as the regenerated worm remembered the lesson. Apparently, its memories go deeper than its skull. In Maori cosmology, the god Tane separated his parents, the sky father Ranginui and the earth mother Papatuanuku, to make space for life. The sky's grief caused rain, a poetic explanation for weather, and also the earliest recorded account of a family breakup turning into climate change. Roman Emperor Elagabalus is said to have installed a mechanical ceiling that released rose petals onto his dinner guests. According to ancient sources, the engineering was more enthusiastic than precise. So many petals fell that some guests reportedly suffocated. Historians debate whether this was an unfortunate accident or simply Elagabalus's dramatic sense of spectacle. In Norse sagas, berserkers were not just wild warriors. They likely entered battle in trance-like states, possibly induced by fly agaric mushrooms, chanting, or controlled breathing techniques. These practices may have rendered them seemingly immune to pain and filled with rage, transforming them into fearsome, almost unstoppable fighters. It was less a matter of poor anger management and more a case of chemically, or psychologically, enhanced Viking ferocity. The Vietnamese mossy frog, Thelederma corticale, blends into its environment so well that for years, scientists weren't sure it existed outside rumors. Its bumpy green skin looks exactly like moss on a wet rock, making it the amphibian equivalent of hiding in plain sight and winning. The Luban lock, named after a legendary Chinese carpenter, was an ancient puzzle lock made from interlocking wood pieces. Without knowing the right sequence, opening it was nearly impossible. It functioned like a 1,000-year-old mechanical password, minus the need to reset it every 3 months. The Enigma machine used by Nazi Germany during World War II had over 100 quintillion settings. Each message required knowing precise rotor arrangements to decode. German officials assumed it was uncrackable, until Allied cryptanalysts, including Polish mathematicians and Alan Turing, found just enough human error to break the system wide open. On Jupiter's moon, Io, volcanoes don't just erupt, they remodel the landscape. Its lava lakes constantly overturn, with solid crusts flipping like pancakes as molten rock bubbles underneath. It's the solar system's angriest griddle, where geology happens in real time, 24 hours a day. The fungus Mycosepurus smithii in the Amazon does away with males entirely. Its queen reproduces via parthenogenesis, making genetic copies of herself to form all female colonies. For these ants, teamwork makes the clone work, and no one's arguing over paternity. The Codex Serafinianus, created by Italian artist Luigi Serafini between 1976 and 1978, is a visual encyclopedia depicting imaginary flora, fauna, and technologies. It is written in a unique invented script that remains undeciphered despite analysis by linguists and cryptographers. The book spans approximately 360 pages and is noted for its surreal content and structural resemblance to scientific reference works. Assassin spiders, native to Madagascar and parts of Australia, prey on other spiders using elongated necks and jaws. Their chelicerae can exceed the length of their own bodies. They pluck web strands to mimic prey movements, drawing victims close before executing rapid, precise strikes. These spiders are nocturnal and rely on vibration detection rather than web building. Maize was sacred and central to Aztec life, agriculture, and religion, and theft, especially of corn, was punished severely, sometimes by death. However, the specific punishment of being buried alive for stealing maize is not documented in the Codex Mendoza or other major Aztec sources. The Codex and historical records confirm that theft could result in death by stoning or execution, but not burial alive. The spiritual and practical importance of maize is well established, but the claimed punishment method lacks direct evidence in the primary sources cited. During World War II, Operation Fortitude was a British-led deception campaign designed to mislead German forces regarding the location of the D-Day invasion. Using inflatable tanks, dummy landing craft, and false radio traffic, it suggested an attack at Pas-de-Calais rather than Normandy. The operation was coordinated by the London Controlling Section and supported by the 20 Committee. When threatened, the Australian crucifix frog secretes a protein-based adhesive that rapidly hardens into a tough, elastic glue, even in wet conditions. This frog glue outperforms many commercial medical adhesives and is biocompatible, making it a promising material for surgical applications. Its ecological role remains uncertain, but is thought to deter predators or entrap threats. The Jingwei bird, from ancient Chinese mythology, is described in texts like the Shanhai Jing. It symbolizes a drowned spirit attempting to fill the ocean with twigs and stones. The story is interpreted as an allegory for perseverance and resistance to fate. It reflects early Chinese philosophical views on determination and cosmic balance. Xenohyla truncata, a Brazilian tree frog, is among the few amphibians known to consume fruit. It ingests pulp and disperses viable seeds through defecation, contributing to tropical forest ecology. Native to the coastal regions of Brazil, it exhibits frugivorous behavior uncommon among amphibians, which are generally insectivorous or carnivorous. In medieval Ireland, the legal system employed an honour price, or enechlan, assigning monetary value to individuals based on social status. Compensation for offenses, including insults, was paid accordingly, often in livestock or silver. Bards, poets, and musicians had defined legal ranks, and penalties for violating their dignity reflected their societal role under Brehon law. The Tagish Lake meteorite, which fell in British Columbia in January 2000, is a primitive carbonaceous chondrite rich in organic matter, but amino acid levels are extremely low, far less than in other meteorites like Murchison. Most detected amino acids likely result from terrestrial contamination, not pristine extraterrestrial material. The meteorite's parent body apparently lacked conditions for robust amino acid synthesis. The Solnhofen limestone in Bavaria, Germany, dates to the late Jurassic, approximately 150 million years ago. It preserves exceptional fossils, including soft tissues of jellyfish and dragonflies, due to anoxic lagoon conditions. The site yielded the Archaeopteryx lithographica fossil in 1861, a transitional form between non-avian dinosaurs and birds. During the 1630 to 1631 plague in Venice, plague doctors were appointed to inspect the sick, record outbreaks, and enforce quarantines. Often lacking formal medical training, they acted as public health officials. Wearing beaked masks and protective robes to guard against miasma, they embodied early preventive medicine, merging medical observation with administrative authority. At the ancient Maya city of Tikal, monumental structures like Temple 4 display architectural features that likely enhanced ceremonial acoustics. The use of limestone, broad staircases, and stepped geometry helped sound travel up and across plazas. These acoustic effects may have enabled priests or leaders to address large gatherings without mechanical amplification. The Bronze Age city of Ebla, located in modern Syria, contained an archive of over 17,000 cuneiform tablets written in Eblate and Sumerian. Discovered in the 1970s, the archive includes administrative, legal, and religious texts dating to around 2500 BCE. These documents revealed new deities and expanded understanding of early Semitic languages. In the 1st century AD, Hero of Alexandria invented the aeolipile, a steam-powered rotating sphere that illustrated reaction-propulsion principles. In the 16th century, Ottoman engineer Taqi al-Din described a steam turbine device that harnessed steam power for rotation. These devices were primarily demonstrative and preceded industrial steam engines by centuries. The parrotfish secretes a mucus cocoon each night while sleeping on coral reefs. This envelope masks its scent, reducing detection by nocturnal predators like moray eels. The mucus may also serve as a barrier against ectoparasites. This behavior is primarily observed in species such as Scarus and Chlorurus within tropical reef environments. The Mekong giant catfish, native to the Mekong River basin, can grow up to 3 meters in length and weigh over 270 kilograms. It is toothless and feeds on plankton through filter feeding. Classified as critically endangered by the IUCN, its population has declined due to overfishing and habitat disruption. In the Carpathian Mountains, a cryogenic process known as ice flower formation occurs when plant stems fracture and release water that rapidly freezes upon contact with cold air. This extruded moisture solidifies into thin, ribbon-like structures resembling petals. The phenomenon is facilitated by capillary action and sub-freezing temperatures, typically forming on certain herbaceous plants with porous stems. Anypniastes eximia, a pelagic deep-sea holothurian in the family Pelagothuriidae, is capable of swimming above the benthic zone using lateral fins. It exhibits bioluminescent properties, emitting defensive flashes when disturbed. The organism's gelatinous, semi-transparent body and locomotor adaptation have earned it the informal name headless chicken monster. It inhabits abyssal zones exceeding 1,000 meters in depth. Takanakui is a traditional ritual practiced in highland regions of Peru, notably in Chumbivilcas province, where community members resolve interpersonal disputes through public fistfights. Held annually in late December, this event follows a codified structure, allowing men and women to confront adversaries physically as a form of social arbitration prior to the new year. African pangolin species, particularly Smutsia gigantea and Phytagonus tricuspis, exhibit an extreme defensive mechanism whereby they curl into a tight ball, rendering themselves nearly impenetrable to predators, including lions. Their overlapping scales, composed of keratin, form a protective armor. Early European naturalists misclassified them as armored reptiles due to their morphology. Species of the genus Osedax, including Osedax mucoflorus, are marine annelids known as bone-eating worms. These organisms colonize the skeletons of dead whales on the seafloor, secreting acid to bore into bone tissue. They harbor endosymbiotic bacteria that metabolize lipids and collagen, effectively decomposing bone from within. The genus was first described in 2004. The mythological chimera of ancient Greece is traditionally associated with the region of Lycia in modern-day southwestern Turkey, particularly the area around Mount Chimera, famous for its eternal natural gas fires. While some modern scholars have speculated that ancient encounters with fossilized remains of large animals in Anatolia could have inspired composite creature myths, there is no direct evidence linking the chimera legend to misinterpretations of fossils. More commonly, the myth is thought to reflect local natural phenomena and symbolic associations with regional wildlife, such as lions, goats, and snakes, which were present in the area and may have influenced the creature's composite form. Shugendo monks, in medieval Japan, engaged in ascetic practices aimed at spiritual purification and the attainment of supernatural insight. These rituals included misogi, or standing beneath freezing waterfalls for extended durations. Practitioners sought to harmonize physical endurance with esoteric Buddhist and Shinto traditions, often conducted in remote mountain regions such as Mount Omine. Certain ant species, including Lasius niger and Formica rufa, engage in mutualistic relationships with aphids. They herd and protect aphid populations from predators in exchange for honeydew secretions. The ants stimulate honeydew release by stroking the aphids' abdomens with their antennae, an advanced form of interspecies resource exchange classified as trophobiosis. Shewanella onidensis, a facultative anaerobic bacterium, is capable of reducing metal oxides such as iron and manganese in place of oxygen during respiration. First isolated from Lake Oneida, New York, it is under investigation for use in microbial fuel cells and bioremediation. Its electron transport chain enables extracellular electron transfer to solid substrates. In Aztec mythology, Coyolxauhqui, the lunar deity, was dismembered by her brother Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, in a foundational myth of celestial order. The narrative explains the moon's cratered appearance as her fragmented body. This cosmogonic story was integral to Aztec temple rituals, particularly at the Templo Mayor in Tenochtitlan. The Cascajal block, discovered in Veracruz, Mexico, contains glyphs believed to represent the earliest known writing system in Mesoamerica, attributed to the Olmec civilization. The 32 unique symbols inscribed on the serpentine slab date to approximately 900 BCE. The script remains undeciphered, but is recognized as a precursor to later Mesoamerican scripts. Researchers at the University of Tokyo developed a polymer glass material in 2017 capable of self-healing at ambient temperature. Composed of polyether thioureas, the glass rebonds at fracture sites when pressed together for under 30 seconds without external heat or adhesive agents. This advancement has potential applications in structural and consumer materials. Geosmin, a bicyclic alcohol produced by actinomycete bacteria such as Streptomyces, is responsible for the characteristic earthy odor of soil. Human olfactory receptors can detect it at concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion. The sensitivity may reflect evolutionary adaptation to locate potable water sources through indirect environmental cues. The Sami drum, used by the indigenous Sami people of northern Scandinavia, functioned as a cosmological tool rather than a purely musical instrument. The drum's surface was divided into symbolic zones representing spiritual, natural, and human realms. Shamans used rhythmic drumming to facilitate trance states and communicate with spiritual entities during ritual practices. Cuprea vitis metallodurans is a metal-tolerant bacterium found in gold-rich environments, such as mine waste. It survives high concentrations of toxic metals by precipitating soluble gold complexes into solid particles, aiding biomineralization. Isolates have been collected from sites in Australia and Belgium, supporting its role in geochemical cycling and secondary gold formation. Polynesian outrigger canoes employed asymmetrical hulls and lateral support floats to provide hydrodynamic stability during open ocean navigation. Constructed using stone tools and organic materials, these vessels allowed pre-modern Polynesians to traverse distances exceeding 3,000 kilometers. Navigators relied on celestial positioning, avian flight paths, and wave pattern interpretation for wayfinding. Ibn al-Haytham, an 11th century Arab polymath, authored Kitab al-Manazir, where he accurately described vision as a process of light entering the eye, challenging prior emission-based models. His experimental methods laid foundational principles for modern optics, including the laws of reflection and refraction, centuries ahead of European counterparts. The ancient inhabitants of the Llanos de Moxos in present-day Bolivia engineered over 20,000 earthworks, including mounds, canals, and fish ponds, across the Amazon basin. These structures, dating between 500 BCE and 1400 CE, formed a large-scale agroecological system for flood management and agriculture. Remote sensing and satellite imagery revealed the network in the early 2000s. During the Edo period in Japan, around 1603 to 1868, firefighters known as hikeshi wore multi-layered coats soaked in water, not for dousing flames, but for protection during demolition. Their primary role was to prevent fires from spreading through tightly packed wooden buildings by tearing down structures near the blaze. Urban fire breaks were often more effective than extinguishing fires directly in such dense, flammable environments. In 2023, researchers exploring hydrothermal vents off Costa Rica's Pacific coast discovered a deep-sea octopus nursery at a depth exceeding 2,500 meters. Hundreds of Musoctopus robustus females were found brooding eggs near warm water seeps. The site challenged previous assumptions that deep-sea cephalopods avoided such thermal habitats for reproduction. And if they can handle the pressure 4,000 meters down, you can handle the pressure of clicking subscribe. Go on. Don't be shy like a brooding octopus. Ancient Egyptian scribes used a script called hieratic, a simplified cursive form of hieroglyphs. It emerged as early as 2600 BCE and was used for everyday writing, including medical texts, administrative records, and religious literature. Hieratic was written with reed pens on papyrus and allowed for much faster writing than formal hieroglyphic inscriptions. In the Peruvian Andes, traditional farmers use man-made ponds called cochas to manage seasonal water. These depressions collect rainfall during the wet season and release it gradually during dry months. The system supports sustainable agriculture in high-altitude environments and reflects knowledge of water management that dates back over 1,000 years. The Siachen Glacier, located in the eastern Karakoram Range, has been a site of military deployment since 1984. At elevations over 5,400 meters, it is considered the world's highest active combat zone. Environmental hazards such as avalanches, hypoxia, and sub-zero temperatures have caused more fatalities than direct conflict between Indian and Pakistani forces. Roman aqueducts were engineered with remarkable precision. Some channels, such as those in the Aqua Claudia system, descended at a gradient of roughly 1 inch per 300 feet. This allowed water to flow naturally over long distances using gravity alone. The system supplied cities with fresh water for public baths, fountains, and private households. During the American Civil War, physicians began documenting cases of phantom limb pain, a sensation of feeling in amputated limbs. Dr. Silas Weir Mitchell, a Union Army surgeon, studied these cases in depth and became one of the early contributors to the field of neurology, particularly in understanding nerve trauma and regeneration. In 1947, the U.S. Army launched a V-2 rocket under the Blossom Project, carrying live fruit flies aboard. Reaching over 100 kilometers above Earth, the mission marked the first biological experiment in space. The flies returned alive, offering early insights into the effects of cosmic radiation and zero gravity on living organisms. The Japanese yew produces alkaloids called taxines, which are highly toxic to humans and animals. However, compounds derived from related yew species were later used to create paclitaxel, a chemotherapy agent. Paclitaxel interferes with cell division and is now used to treat cancers such as ovarian, breast, and lung. Göbekli Tepe, located in southeastern Turkey, dates back to over 9,500 BCE and consists of massive T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in circular enclosures. The site predates agriculture and permanent settlements, suggesting that large-scale ritual structures may have preceded the development of farming societies. Its purpose remains under investigation, but evidence points to early organized religious activity. In the early 1900s, a dentist known as Painless Parker advertised his services by pulling teeth in public with a live band playing nearby. His promotional methods were controversial, but he eventually established one of the first dental franchises in the United States. At its peak, the Parker dental system operated dozens of offices across the country. The Inanga zither, native to Rwanda and surrounding regions, is played by plucking strings while reciting or singing poetry. The instrument's construction and tuning vary between regions and families, with oral traditions preserving each version. It holds cultural significance not only as a musical tool, but also as a medium for storytelling and historical memory. Several species of deep-sea anglerfish, such as those in the Ceratidae family, exhibit a form of sexual parasitism. The male attaches to the female's body, eventually fusing circulatory systems. Over time, the male's organs degenerate except for the testes, allowing him to function solely as a reproductive appendage. On the Greek island of Eura, Cyclops Cave contains archaeological layers dating back over 10,000 years. Excavations have uncovered tools, pottery, and obsidian, suggesting early maritime trade and subsistence through deep-sea fishing. The cave's continuous human occupation offers insights into Mesolithic lifeways in the Aegean region. The Antikythera shipwreck, discovered in 1900 off the coast of Greece, contained a cargo of luxury goods, including bronze sculptures and fine glassware. Among its most notable artifacts was the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient analog device for tracking astronomical cycles, dating to the 1st century BCE. The ship likely originated from the eastern Mediterranean. The Saharan silver ant is the fastest known ant species, capable of moving at speeds of nearly 1 meter per second, roughly 108 body lengths per second. Its reflective hairs help manage thermal radiation, allowing it to forage during peak desert heat when most predators are inactive. The Byzantine military used a flammable weapon known as Greek fire, first deployed in the 7th century CE. Believed to be a petroleum-based mixture, it could ignite on water and was delivered via siphon or pots. The exact chemical composition remains unknown, as its formula was closely guarded and eventually lost. Nightingale floors, or uguisubari, were installed in castles and temples during Japan's Edo period. Constructed with specially designed joints and nails, these floorboards emitted chirping sounds when stepped on. The mechanism served as an acoustic alarm system to alert occupants of approaching intruders, particularly in high-security residences like Kyoto's Nijo Castle. In 1976, NASA's Viking 1 orbiter photographed a region of Mars known as Cydonia, where a mesa appeared to resemble a human face. Later missions, including Mars Global Surveyor in 1998, confirmed it was a natural formation. However, the initial image contributed to widespread public speculation about extraterrestrial life for many years. The term climate is derived from the Greek word klima, meaning slope or inclination. In early geographical texts, it referred to the angle of the Earth's surface relative to the Sun, influencing daylight duration and seasonal variation. This conceptual understanding of climate predates modern meteorology and was integral to ancient geographic and astronomical systems. Light pillars are an atmospheric optical phenomenon formed by the reflection of artificial or natural light off hexagonal ice crystals suspended in the atmosphere. These vertically aligned crystals act as flat mirrors, producing luminous columns of light that appear to extend above or below the original source. The effect is typically observed in cold climates under stable air conditions. In the early 1980s, theoretical physicist Ronald Mallet proposed a design for a time travel mechanism utilizing circulating laser light to generate frame-dragging effects in spacetime. His model, rooted in Einstein's general theory of relativity, suggests that closed time-like curves could form under specific conditions. Mallet's equations have been published in peer-reviewed physics journals but remain purely theoretical. The ancient Thracians, an Indo-European people inhabiting parts of the Balkans, practiced ritual tattooing as a cultural marker of nobility and spiritual strength. The Greek historian Herodotus recorded that, within Thracian society, tattoos symbolized honor rather than punishment. This contrasts with later Greco-Roman views, where body markings were often associated with servitude or criminality. In 1935, Albert Einstein, Boris Podolsky, and Nathan Rosen introduced the EPR paradox, a thought experiment designed to critique the completeness of quantum mechanics. They described how entangled particles could exhibit instantaneous correlations across spatial distances, a phenomenon later confirmed experimentally and foundational to quantum teleportation and non-locality studies in the late 20th century. The Moriori people of the Chatham Islands, a Polynesian group distinct from the Maori, adhered to a strict code of nonviolence codified in Nunuku's law. Despite their pacifist traditions, when the islands were invaded in the 19th century by Maori from mainland New Zealand, the Moriori did not resist. The result was widespread enslavement and significant population decline. In the 19th century, French engineers developed experimental solar furnaces known as forges solaires, using parabolic mirrors to concentrate sunlight. These devices achieved temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius and demonstrated the potential of solar thermal energy. Early models were used to melt metals, including steel, and influenced later solar power research. Genomic sequencing of the Sakak individual, who lived in western Greenland approximately 4,000 years ago, revealed a genetic lineage distinct from modern Inuit and Native American populations. DNA was extracted from hair preserved in permafrost and published in 2010. This marked the first complete genome reconstructed from ancient human remains. The bacterium Magnetospirillum magneticum possesses intracellular structures known as magnetosomes, chains of magnetite crystals, that enable geomagnetic orientation. These structures function as a biological compass, allowing the bacterium to navigate along Earth's magnetic field lines, particularly in sediment layers with low oxygen concentration. It is a model organism in studies of biomineralization and magnetotaxis. Inscriptions at the Temple of Edfu, constructed during the Ptolemaic period in Egypt, describe a cosmogony in which a primordial mound rose from the Nun, a boundless watery chaos. This mythological motif parallels geological theories concerning the emergence of terrestrial land masses from ancient oceans and reflects the symbolic integration of environment and belief in Egyptian religion. Prior to the widespread use of barbed wire in the late 19th century, settlers in the American Midwest and Plains regions employed Maclura pomifera, commonly known as Osage orange, as natural fencing. The tree's dense, thorn-covered branches created impenetrable hedgerows. These living barriers, sometimes called hedge apples, were effective at containing livestock and delineating property. The Ainu, an indigenous people of northern Japan, regarded bears as deities temporarily inhabiting animal bodies. In the Ayomante ceremony, bear cubs were captured, raised in human care, and ritually sacrificed to return their spirits to the divine realm. In 1978, a fossil site in Montana yielded a nesting ground of Maiasaura peeblesaurum, a hadrosaurid dinosaur. The discovery included adult skeletons positioned near nests containing juvenile remains and unhatched eggs. This provided the first paleontological evidence of postnatal care among non-avian dinosaurs, reshaping theories about dinosaur social behavior. Sequoyah, a member of the Cherokee Nation, developed the Cherokee syllabary in the early 19th century without prior literacy or exposure to writing systems. Completed around 1821, the script comprises 85 characters, representing syllables in the Cherokee language. It facilitated widespread literacy and remains in use today, particularly in educational and cultural contexts. In ancient Chinese court culture, bat-shaped ornaments were commonly worn or carried during ceremonies. The word for bat, fu, is a homophone for the word meaning blessing in Mandarin Chinese. These symbolic items were intended to invoke good fortune and were integrated into textiles, carvings, and amulets as auspicious motifs. Tummo meditation, practiced by Tibetan Buddhist monks, involves controlled breathing and visualization techniques that raise core body temperature. Scientific studies have shown that practitioners can increase peripheral body heat, allowing them to dry wet sheets in freezing conditions. The method is part of the inner heat yoga tradition within the Vajrayana lineage. In the city of Teotihuacan, active between approximately 100 BCE and 600 CE, artisans fashioned ritual mirrors from polished obsidian. These volcanic glass objects, often circular, were used in divinatory and ceremonial contexts, and may have served in astronomical alignment or solar observation due to their reflective properties. The stained glass of Chartres Cathedral in France, constructed primarily during the 12th and 13th centuries, contains blue and red panes produced with cobalt and copper oxides. These windows filter ultraviolet light and have retained their vibrancy for over 8 centuries. The precise coloration methods remain a subject of chemical and art historical research. On the Isle of Skye in Scotland, Middle Jurassic-era dinosaur footprints are preserved in tidal rock formations dating to approximately 170 million years ago. The trackways, left by sauropods and theropods, become visible only during low tide. Their preservation offers insight into early dinosaur locomotion in coastal environments. Synesthesia is a neurological condition in which stimulation of one sensory modality involuntarily triggers experiences in another. Types include grapheme color, where letters or numbers evoke specific hues, and chromesthesia, where sounds induce color perception. Studies suggest it occurs in approximately 4% of the population and may have a genetic component. The ancient Mayan calendar system comprises 3 interlocking components: the tzolk'in, the hab, and the long count, which tracks historical time in baktuns. This integrated system allowed the Maya to record dates spanning thousands of years with precision and symbolic depth. The Moche civilization of pre-Columbian Peru, active between approximately 100 and 800 CE, produced ceramic portrait vessels depicting individual human faces with high realism. These stirrup spout vessels included detailed features such as wrinkles, scars, and expressions, representing one of the earliest known traditions of individualized portraiture in the ancient world. In Icelandic folklore, 13 seasonal figures known as the Yule Lads visit children during the Christmas period. Each is associated with specific behaviors, including spoonlicker and window peeper. Historically, these figures were derived from older mythological traditions involving trolls, specifically the ogress Grilla, and were used to enforce social norms through fear-based storytelling. In the 1970s, researchers at Stanford University developed the concept of the Stanford Torus, a rotating space habitat designed to simulate Earth-like gravity through centrifugal force. The structure was envisioned to house up to 10,000 inhabitants and remains one of the most technically detailed proposals for long-term space colonization. Wurtzite boron nitride, a rare polymorph of boron nitride, has been predicted through theoretical modeling to exceed diamond in hardness under specific pressure conditions. Its hexagonal crystal structure can reconfigure at high energy states, making it a subject of ongoing materials science research for cutting and abrasive applications. Archaeological excavations in Tennessee uncovered tattooing tools estimated to be approximately 3,600 years old. Constructed from sharpened turkey bones and stained with carbon-based pigment, these instruments predate comparable tools found in Polynesia and Egypt and represent the earliest known evidence of tattooing in North America. Alexithymia is a neuropsychological condition characterized by significant difficulty in identifying and expressing emotions. Although it is not classified as a standalone psychiatric disorder, alexithymia is associated with reduced interhemispheric connectivity in the corpus callosum and may impair emotional processing, empathy, and interpersonal communication. Analysis of Comet 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko by the European Space Agency's Rosetta probe revealed the presence of volatile compounds, including hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, and hydrogen cyanide. These substances produce a combination of odors analogous to rotten eggs, cat urine, bitter almonds, and formaldehyde, offering insight into the chemical composition of primordial celestial bodies. Navigators from the Marshall Islands historically utilized stick charts to map ocean swells and currents. These navigational aids consisted of curved wooden rods to represent wave patterns and shells to indicate island locations. The system functioned as a form of maritime cartography transmitted through oral instruction rather than written documentation. Norilsk, located in northern Siberia, is one of the largest industrial centers constructed on continuous permafrost. It is inaccessible by road for most of the year and emits approximately 2 million metric tons of sulfur dioxide and other pollutants annually, making it one of the most environmentally degraded urban zones globally. The tau neutrino, the third flavor of neutrino predicted by the Standard Model of Particle Physics, was directly detected in the year 2000 by the donut experiment at Fermilab. It completes the lepton family and is characterized by extremely weak interactions with matter. The largest known beaver dam, located in Wood Buffalo National Park in Alberta, Canada, measures over 850 meters in length. Discovered via satellite imagery in the 2000s, the structure spans remote marshland and is believed to have been under continuous construction for multiple decades. The Hopi people of the American Southwest maintain ceremonial agricultural calendars based on lunar cycles and solar solstice events. These are aligned using stone cairns and natural landmarks, including mountain silhouettes, and govern planting schedules, initiation ceremonies, and meteorological predictions. Medieval European alchemical texts often reference the green lion and red lion as symbolic stages in the process of chrysopoeia, the transmutation of base metals into gold. The green lion is commonly interpreted as a symbol for a powerful acidic substance, sometimes associated with vitriol or, in later interpretations, hydrochloric acid, while the red lion is linked to the final stage of the Philosopher's Stone or to substances like aqua regia. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, constructed by the Maya, incorporates deliberate acoustic features. A handclap at the base of the pyramid's staircases produces an echo that mimics the call of the quetzal, a sacred bird in Mesoamerican culture. Studies confirm that the chirp effect results from the stair-step geometry. Bezoars are hardened masses formed in the gastrointestinal tracts of animals, particularly ruminants. During the Middle Ages, these were believed to serve as universal antidotes to poison and were embedded in jewelry worn by European aristocracy. Their value was based on perceived medicinal properties rather than empirical pharmacology. Project A119 was a United States Air Force plan developed in the 1950s to detonate a nuclear device on the lunar surface. The objective was to demonstrate technological superiority during the Cold War. The project was canceled due to concerns about public perception and the possibility of mission failure. Caulerpa lentilifera, commonly referred to as sea grapes, is a species of edible green algae native to the Indo-Pacific region. The spherical structures are grape-like vesicles used in culinary applications across Southeast Asia. The algae are cultivated in coastal ponds and consumed for their briny taste and nutrient content. A 2011 study published in Frontiers in Zoology documented that domestic dogs preferentially align their bodies along the north-south axis of Earth's magnetic field during defecation. The phenomenon was observed under calm magnetic conditions, though the biological mechanism remains undetermined. The Ganges shark, Glyphis gangeticus, a critically endangered elasmo branch species, is native to freshwater river systems in the Indian subcontinent. It has rarely been observed in the wild and is classified under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species Appendix 2 due to habitat loss and anthropogenic pressures. During the 18th century, barbers in Europe commonly performed surgical and dental procedures, including tooth extraction and bloodletting. The red and white striped barber pole symbolizes the intertwining of blood and bandages. The professions of barbering and surgery were officially separated in England in 1745 by royal charter. The screaming hairy armadillo, native to South America, produces high-pitched vocalizations when alarmed, a trait that inspired its name. Unlike most armadillo species, It is also covered in unusually dense fur, which provides insulation in its arid habitat. This blend of noise and fuzz makes it one of the more unexpectedly dramatic mammals in the region. The Strasbourg Cathedral in France houses an astronomical clock originally constructed in the 16th century. The mechanism calculates solar and lunar eclipses, tracks planetary motion, and features mechanical figures that chime on the hour. It represents one of the earliest large-scale integrations of astronomical science and public architecture. The Zuni people of the American Southwest maintain a spiritual belief system centered on kachinas, spirit beings represented through ceremonial dolls. Each kachina symbolizes a specific natural force, ancestor, or moral archetype. With over 200 unique identities, the tradition is preserved through oral transmission rather than written texts. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array in northern Chile operates at an elevation exceeding 5,000 meters above sea level. Due to the thin atmosphere, technicians working on site require supplemental oxygen. The location was selected for its low humidity and minimal radio interference, making it ideal for high-frequency astronomical observation. In 1971, Apollo 15 astronauts placed a 3.5-inch aluminum sculpture named Fallen Astronaut, along with a commemorative plaque on the lunar surface. The memorial honors 14 astronauts and cosmonauts who had died by that point in the pursuit of space exploration. Zheng He, a Ming Dynasty admiral, led 7 major naval expeditions between 1405 and 1433. His fleet included massive treasure ships, which some historical accounts claim were over 400 feet long, though many modern scholars believe they were likely smaller. These voyages extended China's maritime presence across the Indian Ocean, reaching as far as East Africa, and took place decades before the onset of European expansion by sea. Tibetan Buddhist monks practice a ritual known as sand mandala creation, where intricate geometric patterns are formed using colored sand. Upon completion, the mandala is ritually dismantled, symbolizing the impermanence of material constructs. Weeks of meticulous labor vanish in minutes, on purpose. In 1999, researchers identified Thermococcus gammatolerans, an extremophilic archaeon capable of surviving gamma radiation levels exceeding 30 kilograms. Isolated from hydrothermal vent ecosystems, it withstands doses that would destroy human tissue within minutes. It does not glow in the dark, but probably should. Ancient Greek architects utilized passive design features such as courtyards, shaded porticos, and building orientation to promote natural ventilation and cooling. While not as technologically advanced as later wind catcher systems in the Middle East, these elements contributed to comfortable indoor environments and have inspired some modern sustainable design strategies. The Kumbh Mela, a Hindu pilgrimage and ritual bathing event, drew more than 120 million participants in 2013. Its scheduling relies on planetary alignments calculated through traditional astrological methods. Despite its scale, the event maintains structured crowd management and logistics. Several plant species in Australia exhibit fire-adapted germination. Seeds from genera such as Banksia and Grevillea only sprout after exposure to smoke or thermal shock. Some species even wait for the chemical signal of charred neighbors before making an entrance. No fire, no party. The steppe eagle has been observed following active wildfires to hunt small mammals and reptiles escaping the flames. This behavior classifies it among the few avian species that utilize fire as an ecological hunting tool, effectively turning chaos into opportunity. The Yamnaya culture, originating in the Pontic-Caspian steppe over 5,000 years ago, significantly influenced the genetic and linguistic development of modern Europeans. Their migrations introduced Indo-European languages and wheeled transport technologies to Central Europe, reshaping prehistoric demographics. Early studies suggested that the genome of the tardigrade contained up to 17% foreign DNA acquired through horizontal gene transfer from bacteria, fungi, and archaea. However, subsequent research has shown that the actual proportion of foreign DNA is much lower, comparable to that found in other animals. While tardigrades are renowned for their resilience to extreme temperatures, radiation, and dehydration, their extraordinary survival abilities are now attributed more to unique protective proteins and cellular mechanisms than to an unusually high level of horizontal gene transfer. Certain orb-weaving spiders design webs that reflect ultraviolet light, mimicking the appearance of nectar-bearing flowers. This mimicry attracts pollinating insects that mistake the web for a feeding site, directing them straight into the predator's capture zone, a textbook case of predatory optics. If spiders can trick bugs with fake flowers, I can trick you into subscribing. Just kidding. No trap here, just more weird nature facts if you click that button. Sri Lankan irrigation engineers constructed reservoirs known as wewa as early as the 4th century BCE. These structures, built to manage monsoon water and seasonal flooding, are often linked by underground channels. Many remain functional today, suggesting their builders understood sustainability centuries before the term existed. The bas-relief panels at Angkor Wat contain solar and lunar alignments embedded in mythological depictions. These carvings include solstice and equinox markers used for regulating agricultural planting and royal ceremonies. Constructed in the early 12th century during the reign of Suryavarman II, the temple's architecture incorporates astronomical axes that align with the rising sun during key solar events. The Chamacoco people of Paraguay maintain a cosmology of multiple sky and underworld layers. Their shamans use entheogenic substances, such as tobacco or plant-derived hallucinogens, during trance states to symbolically ascend these tiers. This structure, recorded ethnographically in the 20th century, represents one of the most detailed stratified cosmologies in indigenous South America. In Central Asia, Kazakh and Kyrgyz herders train golden eagles for predation control. Captured as chicks and raised in captivity, these birds can subdue prey such as foxes and even juvenile wolves. Their talons exert over 700 pounds per square inch of pressure, and formal falconry festivals continue to document this traditional technique. Dickinsonia, an Ediacaran biota fossil dated to approximately 557 million years ago, has yielded trace cholesterol molecules. Identified in a 2018 study by Ilya Bobrovsky and colleagues, this biomarker constitutes some of the earliest chemical evidence for complex metazoan life, predating the Cambrian explosion by at least 20 million years. The ancestral Puebloans, or Anasazi, constructed the Sun Dagger site at Fajada Butte, New Mexico, in the 11th century. At summer solstice, a shaft of sunlight passes through stone slabs and illuminates a spiral petroglyph. This demonstrates early solar tracking systems integrated into ritual and calendrical architecture. The Nenets of the Yamal Peninsula migrate seasonally across over 1,000 kilometers with reindeer herds. Their conical tents, known as chums, are made of layered reindeer hides and supported by wooden poles. Oriented to manage cross-ventilation, the dwellings maintain stable interior temperatures in subarctic environments reaching -50 degrees Celsius. In 2019, researchers from the University of Vienna observed wild Goffin's cockatoos crafting compound tools. One individual used 3 distinct tool types sequentially to extract food from a container. The behavior demonstrated planning and tool chain cognition comparable to primates, marking the first such observation in wild parrots. The Bagan Archaeological Zone in Myanmar includes over 2,000 surviving Buddhist monuments. Infrared imaging has revealed layers of murals beneath surface paint, some dating back to the 11th century. These multi-generational artworks document stylistic and religious transitions across dynasties and include hidden iconography not visible to the naked eye. Sputnik 2, launched by the Soviet Union on November 3, 1957, carried Laika, the first living animal in orbit. The mission lacked re-entry capability. Telemetry data confirmed Laika died of heat stress several hours after launch. The experiment provided early data on biological responses to weightlessness and orbital radiation. Experimental research at Rockefeller University in 2016 demonstrated that human eyes can detect single photons under controlled conditions. Subjects in a dark-adapted environment were able to identify photon presence at statistically significant rates. The result places human visual sensitivity at the theoretical limit of quantum light detection. The Nanticoke of Delaware preserved oral traditions using wampum belts, beaded strands with symbolic patterns. These patterns encoded treaties, genealogies, and ceremonial events. Though not a literal written script, each sequence served as a mnemonic framework, anchoring memory across generations. Several preserved examples remain in museum and tribal archives. Howler monkeys of the genus Alouatta possess an enlarged hyoid bone, allowing sound amplification over distances up to 5 kilometers. This bony chamber resonates low-frequency calls used for territorial signaling. Acoustic studies in Central American rainforests have confirmed the correlation between hyoid size and vocal range across species. The Korean Bongwan system classifies familial lineages by ancestral region, not surname. Historically used to prevent marriages within the same ancestral origin, it persists in contemporary matchmaking. Legal restrictions were lifted in 1997, though social observance remains among certain conservative families, particularly when the same Bongwan is involved. The skewed arrangement and growth rings on Graptomys shells develop seasonally and can be used to estimate age and growth. However, these patterns do not follow a Fibonacci sequence or golden ratio-based spiral. Instead, the arrangement is determined by the species' developmental biology and environmental factors. Wolbachia is a genus of intracellular bacteria that infects over 60% of insect species. It manipulates host reproduction through cytoplasmic incompatibility, parthenogenesis induction, feminization of genetic males, and embryonic lethality. Researchers have introduced Wolbachia into Aedes aegypti mosquito populations to reduce transmission of arboviruses such as dengue, Zika, and chikungunya. Field trials have demonstrated population suppression and reduced viral load in endemic regions. Traditional Finnish sauna practice includes the use of the vita, bundles of birch branches used to gently strike the skin. This stimulates peripheral circulation and releases volatile organic compounds, including salicylate derivatives, from the leaves. The practice is rooted in pre-Christian purification rituals and remains an important part of Finnish cultural wellness traditions. Preondactylus bufferini, a small Triassic pterosaur from present-day Italy, had a wingspan of approximately 40 centimeters. Discovered in 1982, fossil evidence suggests it likely glided between trees rather than sustained powered flight. Its bone structure supports transitional development from arboreal locomotion to full aerial adaptation. The Tlingit of Alaska carved cedar totem poles that encoded clan ownership, oral histories, and social status. These poles served as mnemonic devices for recording land rights, lineage, and legal testimony, with symbols and animals arranged hierarchically, according to matrilineal descent systems. While totem poles are visually striking, their primary function has always been to communicate social and historical information, rather than serving merely decorative or aesthetic purposes. The Siberian Traps eruption, dating to approximately 252 million years ago, covered over 7 million square kilometers with basaltic lava. Volatile emissions of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide altered atmospheric chemistry and ocean pH, contributing to the Permian-Triassic extinction event that eliminated over 90% of marine species. The Onmyoji of Heian period Japan were trained in yin-yang theory, Taoist cosmology, and calendrical divination. Officially sanctioned by the imperial court, they conducted rituals for disaster prevention, spirit pacification, and geomantic forecasting. The position was formalized under the Bureau of Onmyo during the 8th century. The larval stage of a sea squirt develops both a notochord and a simple cerebral ganglion, characteristics typically associated with vertebrates. However, once it attaches to a surface as an adult, it digests its own neural structures and becomes sessile. This transformation reflects a shift from active locomotion to a fixed filter-feeding lifestyle, highlighting an unusual life cycle among chordates. Certain female aphids reproduce through a form of parthenogenesis known as heterochronic parthenogenesis, in which the offspring are born already carrying developing embryos. This method bypasses the need for fertilization and allows for rapid population growth under favorable conditions. It is one of the few examples in the insect world where generations can overlap within a single individual. The duodenum, approximately 25 centimeters in length, is the initial segment of the small intestine and receives partially digested material from the stomach. It also receives secretions from the pancreas and liver that aid in chemical digestion. The internal surface features plicae circulares, which increase the surface area to optimize digestion, although nutrient absorption primarily occurs in later intestinal sections. Pseudoliparis swirae, commonly known as the Mariana snailfish, has been recorded at depths exceeding 8,000 meters in the Mariana Trench. It lacks a gas-filled swim bladder and instead relies on pressure-tolerant enzymes and cell membranes. Its physiology allows it to survive extreme hydrostatic pressure that would typically denature proteins in other vertebrate species. Bonobos are one of the few primate species with predominantly matriarchal social structures. Rather than resolving conflict through aggression, bonobos frequently use socio-sexual behavior to diffuse tension and establish social bonds. These practices have led researchers to study bonobos as a contrasting model to more hierarchical and male-dominated primate societies. The Erdapfel globe, created in 1492 by cartographer Martin Behaim, is the oldest surviving terrestrial globe. It predates Columbus's return from the Americas and therefore lacks any representation of the Western Hemisphere. The globe includes speculative depictions of Asia and fictional islands, reflecting the geographic knowledge and imagination of late 15th century Europe. In Persian mythology, the simurg is a large, benevolent bird said to live for 1,700 years. Legends describe it as a source of healing wisdom, with feathers believed to cure illness and guide rulers. The simurg appears in classical Persian literature, including Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, where it plays a protective role in heroic narratives. Promethium, a lanthanide element with atomic number 61, does not naturally occur in Earth's crust due to its radioactivity and short half-life. It was first identified in 1945 from fission products at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. The element is named after Prometheus, referencing its synthetic origin and association with nuclear science rather than natural discovery. The Taino people of the Caribbean are documented to have chewed tree resin from plants such as the sapodilla for oral hygiene and recreation. When Europeans arrived in the 15th century, they observed and sometimes adopted this practice, marking one of the earliest examples of cultural exchange involving chewing gum across the Atlantic. A skullcap, found in Petrolona Cave in Greece in the 1950s, has been dated to more than 200,000 years ago. Its classification remains debated, with some researchers attributing it to early Homo sapiens or an archaic human species. The site has contributed to discussions on early human migration into Europe. The Benin bronzes, created by artists of the Benin Kingdom using the lost wax casting method, date back to the 13th century. The technical sophistication of these works, including detailed reliefs and lifelike portraits, was not fully understood by 19th-century European collectors. Many pieces were taken during colonial expeditions and are now housed in foreign museums. The palace complex at Knossos, associated with the Minoan civilization, features a network of more than 1,000 rooms. Its multi-level architecture and intricate corridors have been linked by some scholars to the myth of the labyrinth. Archaeological evidence also shows ceremonial bull leaping, suggesting that ritual and spatial complexity were closely intertwined in Minoan culture. The earliest confirmed surgical amputation was identified in a human skeleton dated to approximately 31,000 years ago, found in Borneo's Liang Tebo cave. The individual exhibited a healed distal leg amputation with smoothed bone edges and no sign of infection. This discovery predates previously known surgical procedures by over 20,000 years and provides evidence of advanced prehistoric medical practices and post-operative care. Wayfinders, traditional navigators from Micronesia and Polynesia, used a non-instrumental system of ocean navigation that relied on detecting long-range wave interference patterns. By memorizing the rhythm and direction of ocean swells while blindfolded, they could identify the presence and location of islands beyond the visible horizon. This skill was passed down orally and formed a core component of transoceanic navigation across the Pacific for centuries. Tungurahua is an active stratovolcano in Ecuador, with a recorded history of eruptions dating back to the 16th century. It last erupted in 2016 and remains one of the most closely monitored volcanoes in the Andes region. While some volcanoes have crater lakes that change color due to chemical reactions, Tungurahua is primarily known for its explosive eruptions and does not have a documented red crater lake. The Inca constructed suspension bridges made of woven ichu grass that spanned distances up to 30 meters across deep gorges. These bridges were part of the Capac Ñan road system and were rebuilt annually by local communities through a coordinated effort. The construction used no metal or fasteners and relied entirely on tension and braiding, demonstrating advanced civil engineering using biodegradable materials. The Romani language, spoken by Roma populations across Europe and parts of the Middle East, originates from the Indo-Aryan branch of the Indo-European language family. Linguistic analysis shows core similarities with Sanskrit and modern languages of northern India. Over centuries of migration, Romani has integrated lexical influences from over 40 languages, including Greek, Persian, Romanian, and various Slavic tongues, creating highly regionalized dialects. In 2010, researchers studying microbial life in California's Mono Lake reported the discovery of a strain of Halomonidaceae bacteria that appeared capable of incorporating arsenic into its DNA in place of phosphorus. This controversial finding sparked widespread debate and discussion about the potential for alternative biochemistries and life's adaptability in extreme environments. Thanks for watching. I hope you found these stories as fascinating as I did. It's incredible how much wonder and weirdness is hidden in the corners of our world. If you learned something new or had a favorite fact, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear which one stuck with you. And if you're into content that mixes science, history, and storytelling in bite-sized, thought-provoking ways, consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video.